News Committee to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. My name is Alice Howard. I'm chairman of the Community Services and Land Use Committee. At this time, I'd like to announce that public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Is that correct, Ms. Brock? It is. And at this time, because we do have new members of County Council and of this committee, we will do a roll call. We will do a roll call, and I would also like everyone to please turn off their phones, if you have them, to take this time to turn your phones off, because we have a large crowd and we want to be able to hear everyone and hear each other. Chairman Passament.
Present.
Vice Chairman McKellen. Absent. Council Member David Bartholomew. Council Member Paula Brown.
Present.
Council Member Logan Cunningham. Is absent. Council Member Gerald Dawson.
Here.
Council Member York Glover.
Here.
Council Member Alice Howard, present. Council Member Mark Lawson. Council Member Tom, you want to be called Tom or Tommy?
Tom is fine.
Tom Rentz,
Here, present, thank you.
okay, welcome. And Council Member Tab Tabernick.
Present.
Okay. And we have confirmed that we have a quorum for the committee. Thank you. I wanted to announce that at this time, before we go into our agenda, item number 12 is a proposal to amend the St. Helena Cultural Overlay Protection Zone, or CPO, on St. Helena. When we get to that item, I am going to ask for a motion to postpone consideration of the item until our April meeting of this committee, which will be April 10th, and to refer the matter to the Cultural Protection Overlay District Committee, which we formed in November of 2022, and we have a list of those members that I can read out, to study the existing ordinance with our legal department and with other outside entities of the committee's choosing, to suggest provisions which can be added to reinforce the overlay's purpose on St. Helena and to improve the protection it provides to St. Helena and the surrounding islands. I was at the meeting Thursday. We had a great outpouring of the public. I know that many of our council members also watched those comments, and we really appreciate all the public input. This is all about local government in action. When it comes back from the CPO, the Cultural Overlay Protection Committee, we will place it on our agenda and take public comment. If people want to comment on it today, they can, but we have a council meeting in 2 hours, and we have a lot on our agenda for this committee, so I will need to limit our comments to 15 minutes as indicated on the agenda. We have 9 people that had signed up already, and if that's more than 15 minutes, so they will probably all not be able to speak because we have to keep to the schedule. If you only want to speak a minute to give one of those other 9 people a little bit of time, that's great too, but we're going to stop after 15 minutes. So at this time, I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The agenda is approved. We have 2 sets of minutes, one from October 10th and 2022 and one from November 7th, 2022, Natural Resource Committee minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So move, Madam Chairman.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. For both.
For both minutes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And we have a second from Councilman Dawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Those minutes from those were approved. And like I said, at that meeting, we did form a committee made up of making up this Cultural Protection Overlay District Committee. I will read the names of those people, even though it's in the minutes too. We have Queen Quiet. I'm saying that right? Quinquet, okay. Jeffrey Gardner, Daryl Orge, Ori, okay. Bernice Wright. Bernie, sorry.
Bernice.
Bernice and Bernie, so Bernice Wright is correct. Bernice Wright.
Bernice Wright, that's what we had in the minutes.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay. Mr. Miss McDormick,
Right.
Bill McDonough.
Philander McDomick.
McDonough.
Philander McDomick, thank you. Ethel Sumter, Elaine Scott, and Mac Sanders. And we have one other person to be appointed at the next county council meeting because one of the members resigned, Bob Simler resigned. Okay, that's for everyone's information who is on that committee. All right, so we have approved the minutes from those meetings, and we are ready to proceed to citizen comments. I'd like everyone to turn their phones off. Please speak into the microphone clearly, so that everyone in the audience can hear. We need to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but as I said, if you want to take less than that, as we go through, you can give a minute to someone else. We have a timer up here. And also, if you have if one of these people is a spokesman and representing you, that's great too. But we only have 15 minutes. The first person is on the list, and we need him to say his name and his residence. I would like to remind the public, when we go through public comment, to limit their comments, and will address the council in a respectful manner appropriate to the decorum of the meeting, refraining from the use of profane, abusive, or obscene language. And I also would like to remind the council that we are here to listen, not to comment back to public comment. The committee members will have time later to discuss anything that might be brought up during public comment period. Thank you. First person is Mr. Tom Michael. If he'll come forward. And then you'll state your
Afternoon.
name and where you live.
I'm Tom Michael, where I live, 20 Jade Street, Ladies Island, South Carolina, 29907.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property at Pine Island. They support the CPO, and I think there's a great deal of misunderstanding about this meeting and why we're here. And I see that the council has understood that also by appointing this committee to study the CPO. I think that's great. We think that's great. The owners are not here, incidentally. There's two owners. One is out of the state. The other is incapacitated. He's been in a wheelchair for many years and couldn't be here. This is distracting, I must say. I'm going to deliver a letter, and I'm not sure if I deliver it.
You can give it to Ms. Brock,
Okay.
and they will put it in the record for the minutes.
But what my comments say are in the letter, which the council has recognized, is that this is not a meeting to approve or disapprove what is planned at Pine Island. This is a meeting for the members of this committee to realize that the CPO is very vague in general and confusing in a number of instances. And I've pointed out several of them in the letter, and I appreciate the council recognizing that also. And that's what this meeting is about. It's not to approve or disapprove anything. It's about the process, as you state, of the citizens knowing what it is that they are going to have. What is it that's in this CPO? It's got language in it that prohibits gated communities. Does that mean that the people that now own the island can't put up a gate to protect and have security for themselves? That's a rather vague statement. It has language in it about the hunting retreats. Well, St. Helena Island has been a process and a place where there have been hunting retreats since long before my 81 years on this planet. For decades, there have been hunting preserves all over St. Helena. Is that going to be prohibited in this vague language?
Those are
So
28.
I'm here to say that the owners are in support of the amendment, which would further study and put more detail and more comprehensive language in the CPO.
Thank you, sir. There's 10 seconds left. I think Mr. Davis, Reverend Davis, will give you 10 seconds of that time. Could you start the clock at 11 seconds, Ms. Brock? Okay. He's not 3 minutes. It's going to be what was left of Mr. Michaels.
How you doing? My name is Reverend Davis from the island. I live at 21 Delamo Road. Right, I would just like to say that we need to keep the Gullah people over there Gullah. Let Hilton stay Hilton Head, okay? Because you're going to tax us out of our homes if you don't. So I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are listening today that's very much interested in how much we're going to be taxed once you build this bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, next on the list is Mr. Arnold L. Brown. Just so the public understands, Mr. Michael gave Mr. Reverend Davis a small portion of his time. So we are now at number 2 on the list. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for my understanding that item number 12 is going to be postponed until April, so that's great. I also want to yield some of my time to Queen Quet.
Okay.
I ask that the committee do not disregard the petition of over 5,000 citizens who care about this issue, that does not be disregarded. We also have a letter from the governor of South Carolina. I ask that not be disregarded. I just learned this afternoon we have a letter from Representative Nancy Mace that she supports our efforts also. So having said that, I ask that the committee be sensitive to all of the people of the island and not disregard their hopes and desires. The 1 or 2 people should not be making a strong recommendation to have something approved when they have not communicated with the community at all. So with that, I'd like to yield balance my time to Queen Quet.
Okay. Thank you. Did we get your address, sir?
Arnold Brown, 127 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, St. Helena Island.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next we will add time to your time at the end, because you're number 9. Next on the list is Janet McCauley. And if you will state your address, please.
66 Delamo Bluff, St. Helena. I come before you as a Delamo resident, licensed history guide, volunteer in 6 nonprofits, including Turtle Conservation, founding board member of Adaptive Golf, and graduate of Leadership Beaufort. I spent a significant amount of time at Penn Center, National Cemetery, Parris Island, St. Helena, and Beaufort as an ambassador to our numerous visitors, enlightening them on our Gullah Geechee cultural heritage, legacy of our indigenous, and our incredible history. At a recent dinner honoring volunteers, a member of the county council tried to convince me that there would be no impact to my community on the development of Pine Island and these precious acres, that it would be an asset to us. I can assure you this is definitely not the case. It's heart-wrenching to think carving out the cultural protective overlay is being considered and development agreements are proposed. This historically significant property borders my community. It was home and hunting grounds for several Indian tribes, a plantation, an oyster factory, village with antebellum summer getaway homes, home to the founder of Penn School. Also important to me, the electric lines to Pine Island are on my property, and no one has spoken to me about this. The developer alleges he's been holding forums for the past year. No one has spoken to us about the environmental impact, displacement of wildlife, destruction of dense forest, impact on waterways and marshlands, potential for instability and erosion to barrier islands, the impact on sustainable fishing. I champion the green space vote, agreeing to increase taxes to preserve land. On the Beaufort County Council, this is on the website. Beaufort County Council recognizes the need to preserve land that has scenic, natural, recreational, rural, and open space character that is deemed essential to the county's quality of life in recognition of the negative consequences which are often associated with environmentally sustainable levels of development. It is imperative for this process to be transparent. The only information I've seen, snippets in newspapers and TV, on internet, many of which convey different information. It's obvious this developer has worked behind the scenes to promote his plan. I was told it would increase the value of my property. That's only valuable if I'm selling it. What it does is raise my taxes. The promise of a museum within an exclusive gated community is ludicrous, and Data is a perfect example. On Friday afternoons in the summer when I leave Beaufort, what would normally be a 30-minute drive takes me 1 to 2 hours, and the number of accidents along the way is disconcerting. Significant development must be supported by sufficient infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jack, starts with a S. Can you spell your last name?
L-A-D-S-O-N.
Okay. And your residence, please, sir?
45 Latson Road, St. Helena Island.
Okay, thank you.
I came to say about St. Helena Island. I was born and raised on St. Helena Island. I had a survey of Pine Island about a couple months ago. I leave here in the year 1955, not to never come back to live in Beaufort, but I'm back here. Been back 42 years. Not because I want to be back. There's someone bigger and greater than I am that caused me to be back there. What I want to say about Pine Island, and I've been around for 88 years. I bogged the crab on St. Helena Island. Y'all know what crab is? For 1 penny a pound. $1 for 100 pounds of crabs. And if they build what they want to build on Pine Island, guess what's going to happen? No more crabs. No more shrimp. No more fish. People wondered how black folks lived and made it and survived on St. Helena Island when they worked for zero. They survived because they weren't lazy. They had the hunting rights. They could kill rabbits, coon, squirrel, possum, deer, and make a meal. They could take a cast net and go in the river and cast and catch fish and feed their kids. If we sit back and allow this crap that y'all about to put on Pine Island, I'm a preacher. I've been pastoring, been preaching for 61 years. I've done a lot of reading. I heard y'all mention something earlier about government. This is a lot of things. This is what happened. Y'all stated the government doing it. The government, 90% of the time, the government don't have a finger in this. This is something what the rich white folks want. They want to make it as good and as easy as possible for them. They talk about a gated community. Y'all ever thought about the highways on St. Helena? When I leave here in 55, they didn't have no paved street. They had dirt roads. We need traveling space to get off the island. It looked like y'all would be more concerned in seeing highways develop to get in and out instead of putting something like that on Pine Island.
Well, thank you for your comments, sir.
So I'm against it. And I'll be against it as long as I live. If I live another 88 years, I'll vote against it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, number 5 on the list is Marie Gibbs.
Good evening, 1250 Seaside Road, St. Helens Island, South Carolina. If the text is changed in overlay plan is approved, life and the way of living on St. Helena ecosystem will be destroyed. No more fish, no more crabs, no more beaches, no more oysters. Animals running from that construction, where will they go? at your back door like there is now. If we don't care about the people, save the animals living on the island. Deny the text before change in the overlay plan. Obey the law currently in place. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Ms. Gibbs, who would you yield your time to? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, next, number 6 on the list is Marquis Firall. Am I saying that correctly? Yes. Okay. Mr. Firall, come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Marquis Firall. I reside at 195 Eddings Point Road, St. Helena. I want to remind the people on this committee that this is a non-starter issue. We've already decided, we've already told you what the community wants. In the comprehensive plan, it clearly states that St. Helena is off limits. We have already told you how we feel about this. We have made it clear that when you are making decisions, that you're supposed to be guided by the master plan, which is the comprehensive plan, which goes, I believe the current is until 2040. So we've given you your instructions and we've given you a mandate. That was communicated from the community to the council. If I could get everybody who has issue with the CPO being changed, please raise your hand to reaffirm what I'm saying to you. This is one of those things that you have to be very, very, very careful and mindful when you make any decision or make any changes. I also would like to recommend to the board that you adjust the time that you meet. I know this is your normal meeting time, but because you guys have enough time to make a change in the actual time of your meeting, make it later in the day so that more people who are concerned and prepare for a large turnout. We know that the community is very upset and very concerned about this. So, be transparent in your actions and allow the people who are going to depend on the decisions that you make to have a say. That's all I would like to say. I will yield the rest of my time to someone else.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have,
Madam Chairman?
yes, sir.
You're past the 15-minute allotment. There is a 1 minute and 45 seconds left on the table for Queen Quet to speak if you'd like to do that, but just
Okay.
informing you that you are past the 15-minute that
Okay.
you established earlier.
Even though some of them yielded their time.
That's correct. You're still past it.
We have, I'd like to ask the county clerk, have we used all of the 15 minutes?
A minute and 45 was given up, 2 minutes and 20 seconds was given up, a minute and 5 was given up, and 20 seconds was given up.
Okay. Okay, we had 2 other people before Queen Quet. I would ask that if we want to hear from Queen Quet, which I think the majority of the audience probably would like to hear from her, let's go to her now at this time. And the other 2 people, we ran out of time. Mr. Gibbs and Strock. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, council members. Happy New Year. The Queen Quet, head from the body of the Gullah Geechee Nation, founder of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, P.O. Box 1207, St. Helena Island, South Kakalaki, and the Gullah Geechee Nation. I dare you today, because I've been one of the members that founded this thing y'all are talking about, the Cultural Protection Overlay District. I've been the first one, who been a chairman and thing like that. But for all 100 children who come here just now, I could crack my teeth out the rest of the way, okay? But I have to say this, the big fish, the nam from the leaf fish. So in our Gullah Geechee community, from Jacksonville to Jacksonville, there are many proverbs, and one of which is the fact that large fish try to eat little fish. But I also point out to people that piranha, as a school, could eat a whale. You have now awakened piranha that I didn't know we had around St. Helena Island. I discovered that especially last week at the 3-hour-long meeting, and I was here for 4 hours, waiting to be able to present to you Not only a letter from me as Chiefess and Head of State for the Gullah Geechee Nation, founder of the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition, and a founding member of the Gullah Geechee Fishing Association. But then I was called to present on behalf of our Representative Michael Rivers to say he's in opposition to any changes to the CPO as it currently stands. Also, I received a letter from Governor McMaster, and I was asked to present all these letters, and then I got a letter from Representative Chip Campson as well. So as of last week, I presented 5,222 signatures that were electronic. In addition, some 100 plus additional written signatures. Now today I have 5,810 that are electronic here. So as the person who sat for 5 years chairing the Cultural Protection Overlay District Committee initially, let me explain that what people look at as the summary of the purpose of the Cultural Protection Overlay District was not the full sum total of the work that we did. There is law and there is intent to law. So when you speak to the people who formed the law, we can tell you what the intent was. It is stated in the purpose. That is to keep Gullah Geechee, as it was written then, just Gullah Geechee culture alive on St. Helena Island. It was to protect Gullah culture of St. Helena Island. I've traveled to all 50 states. I'm just short of a couple continents to having traveled to all the continents of the world. I have yet to find a zoning ordinance that protects a living culture. Everywhere that people have read about it, scholars have written about it, even legal people have written about it because they saw a vision in what we were doing here in Beaufort County. Where there's no vision, the people perish. There's Gullah Geechee vision that existed back in before the 1990s, of course, all the way into the 1500s, since we'd have been here and things like that. We in Aguina with tall. But I'm just referring to the vision that was applied by many people who are now laying in burial areas that we need to protect on St. Helena Island. We need to protect the natural resources and the environment of St. Helena, and that is protected by keeping our barrier islands around us, such as Pine Island and St. Helenaville, protected naturally the way that they are. All of that insulates Gullah Geechee culture. All of that is a part of how we the Guine on in the creek and thing like that in the Guine in the wood for seeking, Redawas for seeking for Nampun. So the only way we do that is by doing what the comprehensive plan has stated and what you all agreed needed to be done by forming now a committee again, or reconstituting is how I like to say it, the committee, so that we can further evaluate the law. We went through the entire what used to be ZDSO, and we went through every part of it in 5 years. Now you're giving us 2 months. I appreciate the delay, but you're saying in April, we should already have work done and come before you. It would not be the complete work. It would only be to then work on, again, only the section that pertains to purpose and the immediate summary of that which is not allowed. There is no way to effectively deal with all the new matters we deal with, such as ocean acidification, sea level rise, climate change, and compact that in with all of what else we need to deal with in defining these areas that we thought were clear to everyone what a gated area was. We thought it was clear to everyone when we originally put the law on the books and said no golf courses at all. We didn't say a number of holes. We said 0 holes, none of it, okay? So we don't know when it got altered, except that it was done when there was not community input. The Cultural Protection Overlay District came into existence because the community said we wanted it, and every meeting that I chaired as the chairperson back then that we held openly at St. Helena School, they reaffirmed they wanted it again. The community of Beaufort County has stood and said they wanted it again. And then you came up with $100 million for green space. Well, this is your opportunity to use it. And so let's put our money where our mouths are and truly protect the Gullah Geechee culture of St. Helena Island, which is the epicenter of it, not just in our county, but throughout our coast. Thank you. And thank you to all who yielded their time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We are now at the end of public comment period. We are going to number 7 on our agenda. which is the Beaufort Conservation District Annual Report. Ms. PARSICK is here. And if you would, please, 10 minutes, because we have got county council coming up at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
And we want to hear what good things your organization is doing.
I know. I appreciate all the work and effort that's gone into this effort for the overlay protection, and we support what they support. All right, so it's good to see some familiar faces, and I'm glad. I'll be looking forward to knowing some of the new faces. My name is Denise PARSICK. I'm a commissioner with the Conservation District. Okay, and, oh, yes. Back in the 30s, President Roosevelt, because of the Dust Bowl, realized that there was some major gaps in understanding what was going on in America with the soil and the plants. And he he called on Hugh Hammett Bennett and established a committee to look through this dilemma and decided that a federal organization and a state organization was not enough to be able to see what was going on in every community. And so they established the conservation districts. There's one in every state, at every county. In South Carolina, we have 46. He also established at that time the Civilian Conservation Corps, which, you know, created many national and state parks, including our own St. Helena Island. I'm sorry. Hunting Island.
Hunting
I've been
Island.
hearing him passing.
Hunting Island.
Don't go that far with the money.
And our mission is to help people conserve, maintain, and improve our natural resources and the environment by promoting wise land use practices and technical assistance. And we are for the community. So we are located at Crystal Lake Park. So anybody that's here that would like to get us to help you in whatever you need to do on your property, we're here for you. The Conservation Partnership, we like to think of it as a three-legged stool. We have the national, the federal USDA, Department of Agriculture, with their subdivision, Natural Resource Conservation Service, the state Department of Natural Resources, and us. And through this partnership, we've developed many others, but they are our mainstay. That keeps us, you know, seated at the top of the chair. Okay. Recently, from USDA with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, we have paid out $30,000 in cost share to landowners for best management practices, and we have also paid out $11,000 for seasonal high tunnels. So again, anybody in the audience who needs help on their land, we're your one-stop shop. Some of the kinds of things that we've done are tree and shrub and site preparation. That's an example on the right top of the seasonal high tunnels, which extends the growing season. On the bottom left is the pollinator habitat management. And as you may or may not know, we're in severe problems with the numbers and the amount of pollinators. And you know, without bees, there are no trees. You know, there won't be any crops if we don't have pollinators. And then the final one is tree planting on the bottom right, for preparing land to plant trees. Beaufort County comes into the picture with us here. So on the left, it's the U.S., advantages that we get from being connected with them, and on the right is the state advantages. And the Conservation District, we are located at Crystal Lake Park, and that is through Beaufort County. Beaufort County, we pay rent, and we're the greeters there, and we love it. But Beaufort County helps to support us so that we can support them. There are 5 commissioners. I'm the only female. I'm also, by the way, the longest serving female in the state. So we've all been doing this a while. It's 120 years of experience. We look it, don't we? We've had recently some changes. Top right picture, Shelby Berry was our 20-year manager. To the left at the bottom is our new manager, Leslie Miola. And we have 2 new, really super smart, super young and vibrant educators. And they're there on the bottom, too. In the past year, we have presented to over 210 classrooms, camp, and festivals. By the way, we have sent you all this annual report, and I think if you need others, Ms. Hughes has some. But anybody else can go on our website, Beaufort Conservation District. We also started Earth Day back in 1990. So we have been a committed part of bringing together environmental groups for the purpose of serving the county, up to and including now Together for Beaufort Water Quality Coalition. These are just some cute pictures of some of our activities at the different festivals. And then we love Eco Camp. We have Eco Camp for a week in the summertime, half days. And don't you just love, look at the top of the little girl. She's holding a little baby chick. We used the theme farm conservation this year, and we had great help from Clemson Extension and also from the Gullah Cooperative, the people at the Gullah Cooperative. And the other cute one is on the right bottom. Can you imagine the kid being dressed in a beekeeper suit? Anyway, we love Eco Camp. We are a part of Together for Beaufort Water Quality Coalition. We chair it, and we work with Low Country Stormwater Partners so that we have, umpteen agencies that meet on a regular basis to discuss not only water but environmental concerns in the area. And then we also have a local work group where we work with Jasper County to help make decisions about what is going to be required for the people, the landowners who apply for these environmental quality incentive programs. Where is the money going to go? Again, we play well with others, and these are some of our other partners that we work a lot with. And then this is, all of the partners that we work with. We are proud to serve Beaufort County. We moved into Crystal Lake in 2017. And the way we think about it is if we can't answer your questions, we know who can. And so when people come in with a concern, we had a concern not too long ago about feral hogs here in Beaufort County. So anyway,
Yes.
thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hope I kept within my minutes.
You did.
Thank you.
And I would like
And,
to open it up for questions. Any of the committee
oh,
members
yes, anybody have
or
any
other
questions?
council members, questions? Some of this is gonna be new to some of our council members.
I know, I
But,
know.
yes, sir.
Come by
Yeah.
anytime.
Just want to say we appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, York.
I would like to say thank you, because you have now reached the second generation in my family with Eco Camp. My grandchildren went this year, and my daughter went many years ago, and it's a great thing y'all do, and we appreciate your partnering with us on land conservation on all the programs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Our board meeting is the second Thursday of the month at 5 o'clock at Crystal Lake Park. If you ever want to come in and join us, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm glad we have a large audience today, because the next item is going to be very important to our county. Item number 8 is, we're going to hear about the Beaufort County Green Space Program application process, the geographic designations for that group that will recommend properties for the Green Space Program, and the timeline for appointing the Green Space Advisory Committee and establishing the program. Is Mr. Merchant going to brief this? Thank you. I hope everyone had a chance to look at it in the packet, because we have a couple of things to talk about, including which map in the application. If we're happy with that, we can pass it on to full council and get going with this.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, members of the Community Services and Natural Resource, or Land Use Committee.
Yes, sir.
And to the new members, my name is Robert Merchant. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning, and I have the privilege to talk to you about the Green Space Program. And as you're aware, back in August, County Council decided to put this on the ballot for referendum, and the referendum was successful in November, and so now we're looking at what steps need to be taken to get the program up and running. The most important, I guess, critical path item is the state statute and the ordinance that the county adopted call for the creation of a Green Space Advisory Committee that oversees the development of the program and then the review of projects and making recommendations to council. And so the most important item is how to getting that committee appointed and getting them established and doing their job. So there's 3 things we're looking at. One is just an overall timeline to give you an idea of what the next 6 or 7 months look like for getting this program up and running. And then the state requires us to define north, south, east, and west regions of our county, which we're not used to talking about Beaufort County that way. So we have some maps that show geographic divisions of north, south, east, and west. We have 2 approaches we were going to run by you. And then finally, we have the draft application that would be for people who are applying for membership on board, on the committee. Could we put the timeline up first? Okay. And as you're aware, in the ordinance, that the Green Space Advisory Committee has certain requirements of who could be members. And the way it reads is 1 member is a member of county council, 1 is a member of the Beaufort County Legislative Delegation, 1 member who is knowledgeable about the geography and condition of Beaufort County's land, and then 4 citizen members who represent north, south, east, and west of the county. So the way we've approached this is that those 2 members, the one representing council and the one representing the legislative delegation, that will be handled in a different manner than these 5 members who are citizens, either representing a region, or we look at the 5th as being kind of an at-large position. Those would be the ones we're focusing on when we talk about the application process. Real quickly, just to walk you through the timeline, is right now we're at January 9th, and obviously, we looked at what steps need to be taken to get the committee. This makes the assumption that, we get the green light to move ahead today, but obviously that's up to this committee and council. But what we're looking at is that we could be ready as staff within about a week, next Tuesday when we come back from the holiday weekend, to advertise for the 5 positions available on the board. And then the idea would be to establish a deadline of approximately a little more than a month, February 21st. So we kind of see that advertisement date, getting the word out there, getting people to apply for a position on the board is a really important, establishing that time, getting the applications. And then what we're looking at is that once we receive the applications, obviously we're dividing them up into the different regions. We would be looking at staff, and Tom, if you wanted to help me out, I guess staff kind of working with members of this committee who maybe want to volunteer to rank applications. But the idea is that every application that was submitted would be brought back to this committee with a recommendation to come up with a final slate of candidates to interview. So it's kind of like if you think about a job interview process, you have your first screening and then choosing candidates to interview. But all of this, I think the question came up earlier, all of this would be, council would have an opportunity to see every application and know what was submitted. So we would be looking at March 13th, the applications brought forward with staff recommendations to this committee. And then April 24th, kind of giving about a month, in that time, we would be interviewing the finalists and then coming forward to council with the final slate of candidates for committee membership. So by April 24th, that would be the date that the members would be established. Then immediately, they need to get working on establishing the program criteria, the ranking system for projects, all of those things that were defined in that ordinance that council adopted back in September.
Okay.
So once they develop that, and I understand this would be in the form of an ordinance.
Right, right, we're gonna we'll have to have two ordinances. One will be brought forward sooner than later. The first ordinance is gonna be kind of a mini ordinance that will establish, by ordinance, the geographic jurisdictions and the boundaries. It'll establish the terms of the officers, their duties and that kind of thing, so that when they are appointed, they will know how long their term is and that sort of thing. And then once the committee gets stood up, then we'll go through, develop the process of developing an ordinance, a program ordinance, much the same way as we have on the rule and critical.
Okay. So that committee will be, the 2 months or 2.5 months between April and the middle of June, doing the heavy lifting of establishing the program criteria, getting that ready to present to council. Once council approves that, then the way the state statute reads, this then needs to go to the Department of Revenue for their final approval. And if you see on the bottom of the timeline, we have the green space tax revenue. We begin collecting in May. And from what I understand, that those funds kind of start trickling in at first. So that's why we kind of have it's shaded, kind of getting darker as you go into the fall. It's really by the end of the second quarter of collections that, the program is really in full force. There's revenue to begin the process of reviewing applications for acquisitions or whatever comes forward. So we kind of have that as our goal as far as trying to get the program up and running and established before that money is in place, so we could be set to.
Could we just let the committee ask if they have any questions about the timeline before we go on to the map? Any questions about the timeline?
And Ms. Chairman, can I
Yes.
say, this timeline is just a recommendation that several of us, Rob and Mark, Davis and I, worked up together, and it's, of course, a work in progress. And if anybody would like to see any changes, add additional tasks to it, we're welcome to hear it. So this is just our
Yes, sir.
thinking on it.
Yes.
Yes, Tom, you had indicated about an ordinance. An ordinance takes 3 readings. Do we want to have any of the ordinances that we have to have as part of this done prior to April 24th? when county would be expected to approve the entire committee?
Yeah, it will need to be done, in my opinion, so the mini ordinance is gonna need to be done before April 24th, when the committee is appointed. So you have it, and we went through the committee meetings, and the council meetings when we came up with this timeline. So I think the 24th is the second meeting in April.
Correct.
So we would probably want that mini ordinance approved no later than April 10th, but before that. So I would expect us to bring forward the shorter ordinance, provided the council likes the application, provided tonight and today and tonight, the council likes the application, the council likes the way the geographic boundaries are set up, that it likes the qualifications, then we would put that kind of stuff in an ordinance and bring it forward sooner than later. But for approval, no later than April 10th.
Okay.
Any other questions about the timeline? Yes, sir, Councilman Dawson.
I don't have a question about the timeline. I'll have a question about the application and the process.
Okay, let's go over what, will you do the application or the map?
Yes, we could do
next?
the we
have
could do
the-
the application next.
Okay, all right.
So we've included in the packet a draft application. This is pretty straightforward, and we kind of use the existing applications that the county uses for other board membership as a template. So it starts off with a description, just a very general description of the program. And then it goes into what is the Green Space Advisory Committee and what are the duties that have been defined in the county's ordinance of what that committee will be doing, just to kind of, inform if somebody's interested, they know this is what I'm getting into. We also, and this was a opinion of staff, it's something to just offer, we looked at the positions, and one of them talked about knowledge of geography. And so when we talked about the minimum requirements, we decided to include similar language, just to say that to be considered for appointment to the Green Space Advisory Committee, applicants shall possess considerable experience with and comprehensive knowledge of the geography and condition of Beaufort County's land, the natural environment, land development dynamics, and land preservation and development. That is all very subjective, but it kind of sends a message that, that we're looking for someone who really is taking this seriously. And that's similar to the language for that one position on the board. We just thought, well, maybe that you could have somebody with a special geographic knowledge, but maybe you could have 5, and then some represent different regions of the county. So we approached it that way. Obviously, you don't want to get any more detail about qualifications because you start getting into almost like a job application, and you don't want to put barriers such as education or professional background. But we thought that would be good to kind of send a message of we're looking for really committed people who know the county. Other than that, the application is straightforward, and then we have 5, I would say, long answer or essay questions. We have a similar type of slate of questions for people who are applying for the Planning Commission, but it kind of gives people an opportunity to, kind of tell us why they would be a good candidate and member on the committee. We're looking at why they want to serve, what they really see as the mission or the purpose of the program, what in their background makes them, a good candidate for that position. So we, basically covers general kind of things that, and then we ask for an attached resume. That's something that when we look at a planning commission member, we require that. So that's basically the application. We've been working with IT, and this would be something where somebody can go to the Green Space website, click on the link, and it takes them to this, and all of this could be filled in online. So we, as staff, will be receiving each of the applications electronically and then be able to print them out. So the idea is to make it,
easy to get to.
Yes.
So let's open it up for questions regarding the application. Councilman Dawson, or comments?
Rob, on the application, there's a question as to whether the applicant serves on another board or commission. And I know that's standard procedures for our application process in the county. My question and concern is, I have a young lady from the Sheldon community, Sally Murphy, who's a certified ecologist, who's currently serving on a board for the county, but she wants to apply for this position on the green space. And we're wrestling with whether she should resign from and this is something that legal probably might have to answer for you. But she's wrestling with whether she should resign from her current position on the board and then apply for this, which is no guarantee she'll be selected for this green space position as well. So I'm just trying to get some sense of guidance as to how she should approach this process.
Well, Gerald, we'd look into that, whether it's a dual office holding situation or not. However, at the application process stage, I would not think she would need to resign at all. If she needs to resign at all, we'd have to determine that if she's selected to be on the committee. So my advice, if she was asking me my advice, it would be not to resign. If she wants to apply, to go ahead and apply, and then that decision can be made if we get to that point. So we don't lose valuable county talent. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the application?
Councilman Howard,
Yes.
can I just make a couple of more statements in addition to the stuff that Rob has provided to you? First thing I would like to say is that if you look at the application itself, up in the preamble, we actually refer to the state statute and we refer to the county ordinance. Both of those will be available on our website, on our green space website. So you go to the Beaufort County website, and you can get to the green space website. You can probably get to it independently as well. But if you get to that green space website, you're going to have some drop-down menus that will allow you to look at not only an application and apply for it, but you can look at what the state statute says, you can look at what our ordinance says, and other things as well. Number one. Number two, in this preamble, we encourage all applicants to review the green space ordinance so that they understand what it is and what the scope of it is, which is a pretty significant scope, and it's beyond the scope of the rural and critical program in terms of money, but also in terms of duties and responsibilities, number two. Number three, we did not include in the minimum requirements, we did not include language from the state statute about the requirements. I provided that language to the clerk this morning and highlighted a section of it that council may want to consider adding, and if it does, it would be very simple to do it. We would just add it it would be the first sentence behind the colon, where minimum requirement says minimum requirements, colon. So we would insert that highlighted language, which I can't read from here.
In terms?
It says, each member of the board must possess experience in the areas of natural resources, land development, forestry, finance, land conservation, real estate, or law. So any of those. And that's language from the State Conservation Bank. It's in their statute. So you might want to consider that. We didn't add that, but it's up to you guys to do it. In addition, at the very end, you'll see question number 5. It asks folks to provide a resume and any additional documentation. So we expect to receive, we really do. We think that there's probably, like the Atlanta airport, people circling, ready to file applications to be on this committee. We certainly hope there are. And so we expect folks to submit a resume, and at the bottom we say we won't even look at your application if you don't provide us a resume, which it demonstrates the kind of experience you say you have. But we give them an opportunity to attach a resume and any additional documentation they might want us to consider. So Gerald, to your point about somebody that you know who may be an academician or just a scholarly person who writes scholarly articles, they would put in their resume, yeah, I have a lot of experience in this, and by the way, here's a chapter in a textbook I wrote about it, so that the committee, staff, can look at it and evaluate it.
Gotcha.
Councilman Tavernick, you had a question?
So my concern was similar to Mr. Dawson's. the way I read this, does this preclude someone from being selected for this committee if they're already on a commission? Because that might dissuade people from applying.
It does.
Should we say something like, I don't know, it automatically preclude you being on this? I mean, I'm looking at that, and if somebody reads it and says, well, I'm already on the planning commission, why should I bother? They're not going to take me. That's how I would read that.
Well, I would encourage you to go ahead and put that in there. And one thing I failed to mention was that we may want to add language in here that says you don't necessarily have to be a resident of Beaufort County in order to be on the advisory committee. Because, for example, knowledge of geography. There may be people in the state, maybe at the State Conservation Bank, maybe on the Department of Natural Resources, who have incredible depth of knowledge about St. Helena, about the watersheds that we have inside and outside the county that we would want to, you would want to consider. So north, south, east, and west, surely they got to be members of the county. A member of county council, they got to be a resident of the county. But geography, no. Legislative delegation, we have members of our legislative delegation who are not Beaufort County residents. We have Margie Bright Matthews, who's from Colleton County. We have Chip Campson, who is from Charleston County. So that, and who knows the depth of knowledge and experience they have in the kind of issues that this advisory committee will deal with. So, and that's something for you guys to decide as well. Okay. And we probably need to make that note on the application so it doesn't deter people who want to be considered.
I'm just thinking people read this and say,
I
oh,
agree.
well, I'm not going to apply, they're not going to take me.
I agree.
And it's my understanding you can't serve on more than one board?
I think that's a rule that we have in our overall
We'll
ordinance.
Look into it. It depends if it's an agency, a board, or a
Commission.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
look into it further.
Okay.
But all that can be handled if and when they're selected. I would not recommend
Maybe the
anybody
wording of it
resign or
would
not
be-
apply.
I
But
mean,
it's also just out of interest, we usually include on our applications, just because we want to know what they're involved in. So I don't know that it would discourage.
I mean, even if we eliminated that question, I would think that when they're submitting the other supporting information, they want to say, I served on the planning commission for 5 years or current member. I guess the assumption would be if we determine if they're willing to step off their current role, we wouldn't,
They won't preclude.
you're concerned about somebody feeling like discouraged just because they see that on the application. Yeah, I don't know if it's even necessary to have that on there, is
Take it off.
Well, wouldn't it show up on their resume anyway?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, right?
So let's
Okay.
take that off. I mean, I think
Okay.
that would be a recommendation. We'll have a motion that may say that, but I think that's a
Okay.
good idea. Okay, so are we ready to, anyone else have questions? Are we ready to talk about the maps? Yes, sir, Chairman.
Yes, I think we need to move on. It is now 4:00.
I got you.
We haven't gotten to action items that we have to take care of, and the meeting will start at 5:00.
Let's go on to the maps.
Okay, and this is the fun part. So what we did is, I mean, we're not used to looking at Beaufort County and saying, I live in eastern Beaufort County or western, but that's the way, we took the language of the state legislation. Option A that is on the screen right now, what we did here is we basically drew a box around the county and a big X through it to try to define what's north, south, east, and west. And then we moved the boundaries to the nearest, geographical boundary. So we used the Broad River to separate west and south from north and east. With this particular proposal, Tefusky Island, Hilton Head Island are in the South District. West is everything else south of the Broad. And then Ladies Island, St. Helena are in east, and then the rest of northern Beaufort County is in the North District. The problem with this one, I think the advantage is it's very easy to identify. You would know if you lived in the east because you're east of the Beaufort River. West, you're west of Hilton Head and Tefusky. The problem is when we looked at the census tract and added up the population, there's a little bit of unevenness as far as the distribution. And so we took option B, looked at the census tract boundaries, moved things around. The difference here is that in southern Beaufort County, south took in Palmetto Bluff, New Riverside, in addition to the area like Alljoy, that area of Bluffton. So it's really going 278 down Burnchurch Road and down May River Road is dividing the south and the west. And so the advantage of this is that the population distribution is a little closer to parity. The problem we ran into is when you try to get it exact, you run into almost gerrymandered boundaries where it's really hard. So we wanted to stick to something close to roads or geographic boundaries that made it clear. In northern Beaufort County, basically tried to, instead of being everything east of the Beaufort River, we made it everything east of Battery Creek and included Paris Island. And so some of that jagged edge deals with the boundary of Battery Creek and the census tract boundaries. But these are the two that we kind of recommend as far as how we would define north, south, east, and west. And we're certainly open to option C or, whichever of these two that council.
Okay. Any comments, suggestions? Yes, Councilman Glover.
I appreciate it, and I do like option B. The only comment I would make on option B is that when I look at the south and the west, and I look at the east, there's a little bit of parity there. When I look at the north, it's a little less. And if you were able to, without causing a whole lot of confusion, able to pick up a little bit of the west to put in the north, to give it at least another 10,000, and take 10 from the west, which would be about 51,000, and put 43 in the north. I would like that, man, but, without making it too confusing, that's my only comment. I like option B. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm for option B.
Name two.
Consensus, okay. All right, so I would like to entertain a motion to go forward with these recommendations with, if you want to incorporate your comment, Councilman Glover.
Oh,
in
I'll
a
make the motion that if we could bring a little bit more parity to north and west of the boundary, I support this, and you want the calendar in there as well?
Yes,
And the
also.
calendar that's being recommended to move forward with.
And the
And the application, right?
Application with the comments that Mr. Keaveney made
Right.
from the state.
That's my motion, sir.
Okay.
Ma'am.
So then when we bring if that passes, we bring the mini ordinance forward, we can try to include some language bringing over the boundary of the north, a little bit over the Broad
And-
River. Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, just come a little across the Broad River. You may want to pick up Cat Island or something like that. Not Cat Island, Kalawasi.
Kalawasi.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give you 10,000, I don't know.
Any other comments? We have a second for the motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Ms. Brock, you got all those additional things we had? Okay, let's move it right along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Number 9 is going to be Ms. Naggett, recommend approval of a resolution to include the Okatee Regional Preserve in the Old Growth Forest Network Private Forest Registry and enter into a memorandum of agreement for the property to remain perpetually unlogged. Okay?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. For the new members, my name is Stephanie Naggett. I'm the Passive Parks Manager. I oversee the fee simple rural and critical properties and manage and maintain them and open them to public access. So this resolution,
I don't
sorry,
know,
that's
can people in the
making me
audience
nervous.
hear? Okay. You have to move the mic up closer, I'm sorry.
Can you-
Louder, maybe.
Can you hear me now? Okay. This resolution is being brought forward as a request from a citizen and an organization. So the Old Growth Forest Network is the only national network in the United States of protected old growth native forests that designates old growth protected forests where people of all generations can experience biodiversity and the beauty of nature. the group was formed and wanted to have a representative forest in every county in the United States. Mr. Michael Murphy, who is a longtime arborist in Beaufort County, approached me and our natural resource planner, Ms. Amanda Flake, and was asking if there's any of the rural and critical fee simple properties that we could incorporate into this old growth network and designate as an old growth forest. After some desktop analysis and a couple of field visits, we determined that the Okatee Regional Preserve, which there's a map, would be the best one to fit into this category.
Is that the map you want?
Yes, that's it. So Okatee Regional Preserve is the large pink square in the center there. It is bounded by 170 on the west, Highway 278 on the north, Bluffton Parkway on the south, and Buckwalter Parkway to the east. It is approximately 250 acres, and it incorporates some very unique habitats that we don't have or don't see very often here in Beaufort County. It has a very lovely white oak grove on top of what would actually be considered some small slope forests, which is very unique in the low country because we don't have much elevation. This particular property does have some elevation. It also has salt marshes and maritime forest, as well as southern mixed pine and hardwood forest. It does not appear, most of the property does not appear to have been logged in the past. So that also helps with that designation of actually having that old growth forest that the network is looking for. In 2020, I did a forest management plan on the fee simple properties to try to determine if there was any of the properties that I manage that could be used for silviculture, or if there was any old silviculture that needed to be thinned. And from that forest management plan, this property was actually looked at, and the forest management plan designated this property as leave it in its current condition. There is no old silviculture on this property that needed to be managed in any particular way. So that gives it another little bump in the positive category for designation to this network. There is a future public access plan for this property, which is one of the benefits in the network as well. They would like properties to be open to the public so that other people can come and see what an old growth forest looks like. So by having this designation, there's the potential that I could get other grant funding to supplement any income the county has towards opening it up for public access in the form of biking and hiking trails.
And today you need from us a motion to approve the resolution to forward it to full county council?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to do that.
I would love to, Madam Chairman.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yeah.
A second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Councilman
Madam
Ridge?
Chairman, just quickly, I thought that we had some old growth forests in the, what's the river that separates Beaufort County from Jasper County? That river?
New River.
New River, yes.
Mhm.
We don't have old growth forests in that region?
Not county-owned. The forest that is in that
Oh,
area
gotcha.
is actually old silviculture that I'm currently trying to thin and restore to longleaf pine.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, all right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Okay. All right, moving along, we have approval of an ordinance to amend the Southern Low Country Design Manual to meet the municipal separate stormwater MS4 permit requirements. And Mr. Desai will tell us about that.
Good afternoon,
It's in your
Madam
packet.
Chairman, and rest of the committee. So before you are just text amendments that we are proposing to put at the Soloco or within the Soloco manual. Some of the updates to this manual are going to improve the processes that we have in place. Since the Soloco manual's been around for over a year, we've noticed some issues that have been come about, and so some of these text amendments just help improve some of that and
The
that
language.
efficiency.
Okay. Any questions Hope everyone reviewed it. That's page 31. Do I have a motion to adopt these edits to recommend them forward to full council?
So moved.
All right, Councilman Dawson made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, number 11. Mr. Davis, you brief, okay. Recommend approval of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 5.11.90.d, penalty for clear cutting prior to development, to increase the penalties for clear cutting property and provide guidance on acceptable forestry practices.
We're back with more trees.
More trees.
More trees. So I'll try to be as quick as possible in explaining this. We are essentially trying to align more with the state law in regards to the penalties for clear cutting. Currently, right now, it's 2 years. That if you cut your property, you have a deferral for 2 years. What we're trying to do is slide the 2 back to 1 if you're doing it properly, but penalize you more to 5 if you're not doing it properly. And we believe that more aligns with the state law while achieving that goal.
Can you give a quick example of penalty types?
Sure. The penalty, a 5-year would be that if you clear cut your property, you can't apply for a development permit for 5 years. So that's it's a time thing, but in addition to it, the language also makes you replant it. So you can't just leave it in a barren state.
All right.
So it's a pretty.
And how are we going to enforce this with? That's my question.
No, it's fair. We don't accept site plans for this type of practice. So it's kind of through forestry management plans that are done as a landowner and the people in the industry. They would have to essentially get a forester to come out and who's licensed by the state to come and do one of these management plans. If they're doing that, we would view that as they're serious about forestry and managing their property in a forestry strait. If they're not doing that, we would view it as a willful violation of protecting our trees, and that's where the 5 years would kick in.
Okay, we open it up for questions. Any other questions? I kind of got ahead of myself. Yes.
Just one.
Councilman Glover.
I want to make sure that I don't support something that will come back and bite me.
Sure.
Recently, we approved allowing for clear cutting if somebody wanted to establish a house, right?
That's, I don't know if I would use the word clear cutting when building
They
a
own the
house.
property and they want to basically put
House up?
a house up. And if I'm not mistaken, we approved allowing that to happen. Because before they had to wait a period of time before they were able to put a house there.
I see.
Yeah.
So yes, no, that is still the same. So the code still reads that if you try to cut trees or you do something to your property without properly following the procedures for cutting trees, you could get hit with what's called a stay on property, which could require you to wait to receive a
Yeah,
permit.
I'm gonna support the motion, but would you research that to make sure that we did approve that here recently? And I'm saying less than a year ago, I think. But-
I don't know. We've brought a lot of text amendments
I know
in front
that.
of you, over the last
Okay.
year, and a lot of them have been tree related. We did a river buffer one not long ago.
Yeah, I know, I got that, yeah.
But regarding the stay on property, Rob, I don't know if you recall any recent ones that he might be referring to, but not in the last year.
Because there were folks who wanted to put a house, a mobile home, or build a house, and they were restricted from doing it, and I thought we passed, which would allow that to happen. It was just for a house spot.
Yeah, I think the only change that I'm aware of that would affect that, this was more than a year ago, but we have different standards. If you have an existing house on a lot of record and you want to take down a tree, the threshold of what is called a grand tree that you would need a permit to take down, it's a higher threshold than if you were a developer building a new house on a new lot. So that was established, I would say, 5 years ago.
No, this is
But
recently. So if you could research
I'll look
that-
at I'll look at what we approved and just see which
okay.
one matches, and then we'll.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right.
Do I have a motion? Entertain a motion to go forward with this text
I think Mr.
amendment?
Glover made the motion.
Did you make the motion?
Yes, he did.
Okay, a second. I need a
Oh,
second.
okay. Yes, I do. Yeah, I said I would
I
support
need
it,
a
so I make
second.
the motion. Yes,
I'll
ma'am.
second it.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
All in favor for moving this forward to full council?
Aye.
Okay. All right, number 12. Now, I would like the audience, I know a lot of you are here for this. After we vote on it, could you please be quiet as you exit, because we still have another item on the agenda after this. We have 13 items. Okay. Number 12, recommend approval of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 3.4.50, Cultural Protection Overlay Zone Standards.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before I offer a motion, I want to make a couple of statement and recognize some statement that was made. I want to start with Reverend Latson at this time. One of the things Reverend Latson said in his presentation was the significance of St. Helena. I didn't realize that until after I left college, came back home, and we were talking to some people at Penn Center, and they told me that folks of St. Helena never really felt the impact of the Depression. And I said, why not? He said, because folks on St. Helena didn't have any money. The Depression only hurt people with money, but the folks on St. Helena always had food on the table. And I think Reverend Latson articulated that earlier. That's the significance of that area, because sustainability is there where folks actually can live. They got the ocean. They have they plant their crops, so they can live whether they have money in their pocket or not. I can tell you that my parents didn't have a lot of money, but I never missed a meal, and so that's that culture that's there. The other thing that I want to lift is Queen Quet. I'm gonna use the word spirit of the ordinance. It's the spirit of the ordinance that's implied here, whether it's defined or not. It is the spirit of the ordinance that's in there, and so with that in mind, one of the charge that the St. Helena Cultural Protection Overlay District was given back in from this council in November. One of the things they talked about was that the committee will determine what needs to be added to the cultural protection overlay to reinforce its purpose and improve the protection it provides St. Helena and the surrounding islands. So with that in mind, I want to lift the St. Helena Cultural Protection Overlay District by moving that we postpone this matter until our April meeting, which is April 10th, and to refer the matter to the St. Helena Cultural Protection Overlay District Committee to study the existing ordinance with our legal department and with other outside entities of the committee choosing, to suggest provisions which can be added to reinforce the overlay's purpose and to improve the protection it provides St. Helena and the surrounding islands. That's my motion at this time, Madam Chairman.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Dawson. Discussion? Mr. Greenway, do you have anything?
I'm just here to answer questions if you guys have any.
Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we are going to move on to number 13. Thank you. Recommend approval of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code Appendix C.2, Robert Smalls Parkway, South Carolina Highway 170, to update access management standards. And I'm going to go outside a little bit of this, Mr. Fralix. When I was reading this, I was amazed at how many apartments are planned for this area. I was shocked, even though I know they're coming. So when you talk to us about this, can you read on page 66 some of the numbers that we're looking at?
Sure, absolutely. I think I got that page. Yep. So this is something, we already have an access management plan in the Community Development Code, but with all the development in the area, this is the 170, just a snapshot of 170, the northern portion from Castle Rock to Paris Island Gateway. It also includes Broad River Road, acting kind of as a parallel street to 170 from Joe Frazier back to Paris Island Gateway as well. So in this specific area, there is a lot of development on the books. Some of it's already submitted. Most of this area is in the city of Beaufort. And even just past Castle Rock is where Port Royal starts. So there's a lot of development you can see there. This is a snapshot of the report. We commissioned a study along with the city of Beaufort to take a look at this and do a deep dive and hopefully get in front of this. Again, I mentioned we already have an access management plan in the community development code, but we want to make sure it was up to snuff before the development actually hit the road. So you can see some of the outline of proposed development, and as you mentioned, Councilman Howard, there's a lot in the area that is coming. So just to name a few, there's 528 apartments off of Broad River Boulevard and WK Austin. That's what you see if you can make out behind Walmart, actually to the top right of the page, very top right. You can barely see it. But basically everything behind Walmart's, there's already some apartments, but the rest of that will be apartments. The school district is redoing their school and recreation facilities. Just to the south of the school district is some commercial property on 170, as well as some mixed-use residential and commercial, basically between what is WK Austin and what is proposed as an extension of Joe Frazier Road. And then directly across from Walmart is the commercial shopping center that has Hobby Lobby and Ross, and I think they've talked about a bunch of those retail stores that are coming. So that's what's known and in the books, but as you can see, there's still a lot of wooded areas that has future development plans that are either in the making or perhaps will be soon. So what we've done here is basically looked at this and say, okay, is there any improvements we need to make? One of the major improvements that came out of this is the establishment of 2 additional signals. So we have an existing signal at Paris Island Gateway and 170. There is a new signal that's just been installed at WK Austin, which will feed into that development south of Walmart. And then the next signal that existing is at Castle Rock. So with any good planning, we want to lay out our signals before the development gets there and ask us where they want to put it. So the spacing right now in the community development code is 1,900 feet. Ideal for a corridor of this size and speed is a half a mile. And it just so happens that currently from 170 Paris Island Gateway to WK Austin is right at that distance. And then if we go another half a mile, it puts us at the middle intersection. Basically, this is Goethe Hill would kind of turn directly into 170, and potential Joe Frazier extension would come. So that's the new signal. And then the last signal is at Castle Rock, or excuse me, this is this is where Broad River, I'm getting my roads mixed up. Near the school, near what's the school?
Robert Smalls.
Bridges.
Oh, Bridges.
Excuse me. I think anybody who's driven to Bridges can understand that one. So this gets our spacing in line, so this gives us adequate equidistant spacing. The other signal I've made mention of is at WK Austin and Broad River Road on the back end. That one's going to be warranted just by the development itself right there where she's circling the cursor. And again, more apartments and medical office, just a whole bunch of growth in the area. So basically the snapshot is the 2 additional signals and the spacing, and then establishing that in the text of what's already recorded in our community development code. So that's the basis of this change that we bring to you tonight.
Thank you. We have any questions? No.
And this has been approved at the Planning Commission already.
At the Planning Commission,
in
thank
December.
you. So we need a motion to go forward with amendment to the CDC so that this plan can be initiated. You hear a
I'll make the
motion?
motion.
All right, thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned. And we will start back at 5 o'clock with a regular meeting.
Is this your district?